Hello students, welcome to today's daily news analysis. Today is December 13th, Saturday, and before we go to today's topics, these are our today's topics. Retail inflation, a slight increase in retail inflation has been observed. Pax Silica, a US-led initiative. Census and the outlay, cabinet has approved the census and some features of the census. IMF conditions for Pakistan. We don't need to know what are the conditions for Pakistan, but there are certain important terms and terminologies which I want to discuss. Macaulay's minutes. This is on the debate, recent Prime Minister's speech about this and everything. So it's an important topic for this year prelims. 100% FDI in insurance and also civil nuclear sectors. MGNREGA to be renamed into Punya Bapu Gramin Rojgar Yojana. So we'll get into the details of these things. Before we start, let's start with a quote as usual. Every work has got to pass through hundreds of difficulties before succeeding. Those that persevere will see the light sooner or later. This is a quote by Swami Vivekananda. Right. Basically, this quote reflects what is our UPSC journey also. Right. We try to doing our normal tests, prelims test, mains test. We write prelims, mains. Sometimes we clear, sometimes we go up to the last stage, but then again we don't clear. So every work passes through these hundreds of difficulties before we succeed. What we need is to persevere in our efforts, persevere in our hard work, and only that perseverance and hard work will ensure that the success comes your way sooner or later. With this thought in mind, let's start with today's topic. The first topic is retail inflation. The news is retail inflation has risen to 0.71% in November 2025, right? So this is most important news topic. Now we need to understand certain things here. The data that you are going to learn here is not important, but I want you to observe the broad trends. This is what I actually say in every economics topic I took so far, whether it is GDP or Forex or FDI or whatever it is. Observe the broad trend patterns. That is where the prelims bits come from. So it has risen 0.71% in the November 2025 compared to the year-on-year basis. Now, the thing is, the factors that generally concern a common citizen, that is food prices are still cheaper than a year ago, right? This is more important for us to understand. Compared to last year, the food prices are still low. In fact, they are in deflation zone. So this is what important for us here. Though the inflation has risen up, the food prices which concerns the common man, that is low. So headline inflation is still very low, right? Now let's observe what is happening. The first thing is inflation year on year from last year November to this year November is appearing as increased because of a very unfavorable base effect, right? This is a common term we keep hearing in the economy, base effect. What is base effect? Base year is a reference year. Let us assume you are comparing this year's inflation with last year's inflation. So last year is your base effect. So compared to last year, how much has your inflation increased? So last year is your base, and since last year inflation is very high, compared to that we are comparing this year inflation, hence we are seeing an uptick in inflation. So the unfavorable base effect is the main reason for the increase in inflation at this point of time, right? So let us observe a scenario. For example, in May 2022 when the GDP data came, we have seen almost 20% GDP growth compared to last year, that is 2021. But what happened in 2021? In 2021, during the same point of time, we had COVID pandemic and a subdued industrial activity and closure of manufacturing and the other sectors. So economy on a whole is very in the downturn. So compared to that downturn, when you compare 2022, you will obviously see a very high growth. This is called as base effect, right? Compared to this base, this growth is very high. Now, if you compare this 2022 growth with say pre-COVID, that is 2020, then it might not appear 20%, it might be say even deflationary also, right? 2020 our economy was at peak, right? So like if you are assuming 2020 may the growth is around say 10%, compared to that it might be 2022 growth might be not even 8%. So this is what base effect means. If you are comparing the current with the very high base effect, then you will have a growth dampening effect, and if you are comparing the current with the very low base effect, then it will give you a very high, it will show a very high growth. So this is called base effect, right? Low base means high rebound, high base it shows a dampened growth. But the thing you have to observe here is this. If you have seen 2023 and 2024, price rise of food and vegetables has been one of the common problems of common man, right? Even UPSC has asked a question in 2023 or 2024, means what are the reasons for high inflation in food items, right? So now in 2025, for a sixth month in a row, the food prices are at a very low base, right? For a sixth month in a row, the food prices are at very low base. So that's actually a positive for this, right? Now let us see what is happening, right? Now we have discussed a term called as food prices are in deflation zone. So what do you understand by deflation zone, right? See, deflation refers to inflation being near zero or in the negative. It basically means that inflation means price rise, deflation means price down. So right, inflation being below zero or in the negative category is called as deflation. Now before we go into the news, this topic continuation, I just want to take a small side step and discuss what is deflation. See, the thing is that, like I said, deflation means inflation being below zero or in the negative category. So what are the problems with deflation? See, when you see from a customer point of view, you think that ठीक है पहले मुझको 1 kilo of aloo I am getting for 20 rupees. Now because of deflation I am getting this for say 10 rupees or even 5 rupees. So from a consumer point of view, it's a very good thing, at least in the immediately. Now let us see the long term impact of this. Now if you are observing that a price of something is decreasing day by day or month by month, for example, this price of aloo is 20 rupees in the month of April. Now it becomes 18 rupees in the month of May and 15 rupees in the month of June and 13 rupees in the month of July, etc. So if you are seeing there is a price decrease, let us substitute aloo to something else. Aloo is something we buy daily. Let us subsume it to phone or something you are planning to buy. And if this is decreasing month on month, as a customer, what you will do? You will postpone your purchase of that product in order to wait and see whether the price will even drop further, right? So you'll postpone your purchase of the product to wait and see whether the price will even drop further. And this is not just you. This will be the case with almost all the consumers across the economy. So when the price rise, when the prices are falling continuously month after month, or when there is a deflationary tendencies in the economy, the consumer behavior will be to wait and watch. And if the consumers are waiting and watching, it means they are not spending. That means there will be a slowdown in the spending, resulting in slowdown in economic activity. Now let us see the cause and effect relationships for this. Okay, what will be the consequences of all this? First, there is deflation, right? Because of the deflation, consumers will have wait and watch approach. Because of the wait and watch approach, the prices will still keep falling. See, demand and supply are basics for the economy, right? So And you also have to remember something, the demand will always be more than supply in normal circumstances. But when the consumers are adopting a wait and watch policy because the prices are falling, then what will happen? You are not buying things. Since you are not buying things, the manufacturers will even reduce the prices further. So this will again contribute to the price rise. So wait and watch policy decreasing in price downfall, and this will result in economic slowdown. Now, when an economy slow downs, what will happen? The manufacturers will not see any profits, so there will be losses. There will be no new investment, and because of losses and no new investment, what happens? There will be job loss. Because of job loss, there is no money in your hand, and because there is no money in your hand, again you will not buy things. So it will enter into a cycle going on and on and on. So this is called as a deflationary pressure. So now what will happen in deflation? Deflation signals something called as weak demand also. For example, inflation signals a demand in the economy. Like I said, demand is always greater than supply. Since the demand is always greater than supply, people who have more money will afford more money, will buy that good. For example, if a good, there are only 10 items of something and each is 100 rupees, and there are 1000 people or say 100 people trying to buy this. Now, if there are only 10 items, what will happen? 100 people are trying to buy only 10 items. So automatically this 100 rupees price will increase to say 110 or 120. But even though the price is increasing, these 100 people can able to afford to buy this. So they will regardless buy this. So this signals that there is a demand in the economy, and the deflation is exactly opposite of that. The prices are falling, and since the prices are falling, consumers are waiting for the prices to even fall further, which signals there is a weak demand in the economy. That is first thing. Deflation signals weak demand in the economy. Deflation also signals there is a less spending capacity. Right? See, the initial fall in prices happens because of less spending capacity. For example, there is something at 100 rupees, right? And if no one is buying at 100 rupees, then what will people do? The manufacturers will reduce it to 95 rupees. Even then no one is buying, it will become 90 rupees. So there is a fall of price. This fall of price, the initial fall of price or reduction of price itself denotes or connotes that there is a less spending capacity from the public. So in deflationary pressure also signals the spending capacity of the public is very less, right? Obviously it will reduce the business profits, it will create unemployment, it will create debt burdens to the industries, right? And economic stagnation. So what will the banks do? Banks will cut the base prices so that the cost of borrowing will not be very high. So even in deflation, people will borrow more money and spend on it, thereby spurring the demand. Basically, money injecting into the economy will increase the inflation. So that is the idea behind cutting the money. So I just deviated from the original topic to explain this because I wanted you guys to know about this. It's a very important topic, right? Now coming back to the main topic. Now we have discussed about the food products which are in deflationary zone. The non-food products are also very subdued. For example, clothing and footwear is only up 0.1%, housing 0.2%, etc. But the outlier in this entire scenario is gold and silver prices. See, there are 299 items in CPI basket, and gold and silver constitutes only 1.19%. But the astronomical rise of gold and silver, I think gold is going 24 carats of gold is almost 1,35,000 per 10 grams. It used to be 87 or 84,000 in March or April. Now it is almost 1,35,000. The same thing is for silver. So this astronomical rise in gold and silver is also the reason for rise in inflation. However, fortunately for us, what is happening is the rise in gold prices is being nullified by decrease in food prices, right? The rise in gold prices is being nullified by decreasing in food prices, thereby keeping the core inflation at 4.4%, which is the projected and safe spot as determined by the RBI. Right? Elevated gold and silver is the reason for core inflation, and the upward pressure of core inflation is nullified by continued impact of food prices, and also the economy has seen GST rate cuts in September 22nd. The rate cuts in GST in September 22nd also spurred the demand of goods, food and other items. So, that is also contributed to the decrease in the inflation. Now, what is RBI response or RBI action regarding this? This is important. See, in November itself, RBI has cut monetary policy base points by 25 base points. So, the repo rate is 5.25. Now, the central bank is forecasting that the prices will rise in the future. Right? The central bank is forecasting that the prices are going to rise in the future. The central bank is forecasting that the GDP growth rate which we have observing is going to moderate coming to the third and fourth quarters of this financial year. In light of the price rise that is being anticipated and in light of the GDP moderation that is being anticipated, the central bank is willing to spur the economic demand and economic growth even further. So, the analysis and the experts argue or forecast that the next MCP meeting that is happening in February will again see a rate cut. Will again see a rate cut. So, this is about the inflation and inflationary pressures and what is driving the inflation. The next topic is Pax Silica. So, basically this topic talks about a US led initiative to control or to safeguard or to use the exact term to protect supply chains, to protect the supply chains of critical minerals, energy inputs, which critical minerals and energy inputs which are used in advanced manufacturing and semiconductors. Basically, it's a US led initiative to control the supply chains of critical minerals as well as energy related inputs for advanced manufacturing and semiconductors in light of the recent AI boom that is happening. Right? See, the backdrop of this is that somewhere in October or September, when there is a US-China trade tensions are going on, China has curtailed the supply of this rare earth magnets to the US and to the other parts of the world, citing national security concerns. See, we have already discussed in my last DNA class that China almost controls 90% of rare earth magnets. Since China is controlling almost 90% of rare earth magnets, it is dictating the global supply chain, and these rare earth magnets are extremely important for semiconductors, CPUs, GPUs, right? All this sort of things, and China is controlling that. So, in order to ensure, in order to safeguard and protect these supply chains from the Chinese control, the Pax Silica initiative has been taught by USA, right? The major news here is that India is not part of this initiative. India is not part of this initiative, right? So, what is the objective? Pax Silica aims to reduce coercive dependencies and protect materials and capabilities foundational for artificial intelligence. See, the aim of this entire initiative is to ensure the artificial development boom that is happening in the major Western economies like US, Europe, Japan, etc., are safeguarded from the corrosive tendencies of other countries like China, right? See, AI boom is going to result in another form of new colonialism and a new divide that is apparent as of now. Almost all the AI development that is happening in the Western countries, and almost all the AI markets or the Asian markets. India is in fact the second or third largest AI market for both open AI as well as Gemini, right? So the technology is being developed somewhere, the resources, the money is being profits is going somewhere, and we are becoming a market again for some developed goods. That is what going to happen, and that is what happening. And this initiative should be also taken into view in the uh, context itself, because almost all the countries that are part of this initiative, at least at this point of time, you see US, UK, Australia, Japan, Korea, all are US allies and major developed economies, right? So together these countries are important for the most important AI companies in the world, right? Now see, it is an initiative not just to safeguard their supply chains, right? For example, a question might come in UPSC saying that consider the following statements about Pax Silica, and one of the statement is, apart from safeguarding the supply chains, it also has investment and other partnership, co-investment partnerships, right? So now countries will partner on securing strategic stacks of global technology supply chains and software applications and platforms. This is very important. It is not just about securing supply chains for the supply of critical minerals. There are aspects of this initiative which also has partnerships in software applications, platforms, fiber optic communications, etc. Right. So this initiative will have joint ventures, strategic co-investment opportunities, protecting technologies and critical infrastructure, right? Building trusted technology ecosystems, including ICT systems, fiber optic cables, data centers, foundational models and applications. So it is basically, the name Pax Silica, it might indicate it's a supply chain ecosystem, but it is basically a AI ecosystem of all the Western US and its Western allies. Please understand this in this context, right? Now, one of the reasons why that was given, or one of the reasons why our experts predict India is not part of this, is that this is about AI ecosystem, and the AI ecosystem in India is not well developed. Rather, India has enough processing capacity of rare earth minerals needed for the semiconductors, nor there is an AI development ecosystem in the software side happening in India at this point of time. So US did not include India, but experts believe that there might be a future where India might be part of this initiative. And also at this point of time, there is a some tariffs going on between India and the US, and there is a pending trade deal happening between India and US, and we all seen that President Trump is using trade as a leverage to get what he wants in terms of favorable deals, etc., right? So this might also be one of the way to get him what he wants. Now there is another agreement called as Mineral Security Partnership. It was under the previous Biden administration that came in 2022, and India joined that agreement, or India joined that initiative in 2023. So people believe that though India was not part of Mineral Security Partnership of 2022 initially, India joined this in 2023. So people believe might join this Pax Silica also later. And the other point I want to say about this MSP is that this mineral security partnership, it is also for ensuring safeguarding and protecting supply chains of critical minerals for EV and clean energy transformation, right? Ensuring or safeguarding the supply chains of critical minerals for EV as well as clean energy transformation. Now, the difference is that this thing is for not related to AI. This thing is a pure supply chain initiative to safeguard the supply chains, right? And here, whatever the initiatives that comes here, this MSP will also have partnership initiatives, co-investment opportunities, etc. But in exploration and mining of critical minerals only. It has nothing to do with the AI. It has everything to do with the exploration, mining and supply of critical minerals, and India has joined this in 2023. And this MSP also has something called as Mineral Security Partnership Financial Network. Mineral Security Partnership Financial Network. It came up in 2023. Basically, it's a financial network of all the member countries of MSP along with governments as well as the private organizations where they can come and invest together in exploration and mining of rare earth minerals across the countries. Right. So, this is about Pax Silica and also about the Mineral Security Partnership. Now, the other thing is about census. Right, we have already covered the topic of census in one of our previous DNA classes of last Tuesday, if I am not very wrong. Right, again, there is a new development on this. The development is that government has sanctioned 11,718 crore rupees for two-phase census program. Please, let's go into the details of this thing. Right, going to the details, it has sanctioned almost 11,718 crore rupees, not important for the exam point of view, just saying. The important point is the census will be held in two phases, right? And the second important point, in April this year, the Union Cabinet has taken a decision to do caste enumeration along with this census. I think this is happening for the first time. So, there will be a detailed caste enumeration happening along with the census, along with the current census that is happening, right. Now, coming to the key takeaways. The 2027 census of India is going to be the world largest administrative as well as statistical exercise. Of course, it is going to be the world largest exercise. We are the world most populous country with almost 1.45 billion people, and enumerating all this 1.45 billion people is going to be the largest administrative as well as statistical exercise. Now, the census will happen, like I said, in two phases. The first phase of census that will happen in April and September next year is about house listing and housing phase. Right, the first phase is about house listing and housing phase that will happen in April to September next year, and this phase is foundational phase. And the next phase is actual census phase, where the population enumeration will happen in February of 2027. So, what is this housing and house listing phase? Basically, try to understand this in this way. House listing is to understand where people live, right? Whereas enumeration is to know who lives there. For example, house listing talks about the buildings, the kind of building material is there is used, how many rooms are there in the house, amenities in the house like it has color TV, Wi-Fi, telephone, computer, etc. So, it is about knowing the general characteristics of the houses that are there in the country. It also has some demographic dividends like who is the head of the house, what is the is this a male led house or female led house, all this sort of things. So, it is basically about knowing where people live. They will know about your house, that's it. So, आपका घर में कितना कमरे हैं, right? Do your house have a Wi-Fi? All this sort of things. The second phase that is happening in 2027 is knowing about who lives in that house. In the first phase, there will be no population enumeration. The first phase is only about the physical property. The second phase is where the actual enumeration of population happens, and the caste census also will be happening in the second phase itself, right? Now, some important features. The first modern census in India was conducted in 1872. However, a very comprehensive synchronized census was first conducted in 1881, and since then, since 1881, we are conducting a decadal census, right? And this 2027 census will be the 16th census and 8th after independence. Please remember these things, because last time also there was a question in UPSC. There one statement says that the current delimitation, there have been 4 delimitation conditions, delimitation commissions so far. So the statistical or the factual information is also coming as a question. So please remember this: 16th census overall and 8th census after our independence, right? Caste enumeration will be done in the second phase, and another highlight is that this census will be the first ever digital census in the country, right? This digital census will collect the data on housing, amenities, demography, etc. And also this census is giving people an option to self enumerate, in the sense that there will be a website or there will be a portal which will be available both on Android as well as iOS, and the people can self enumerate themselves on using these portals, right? That is about the census. Now let's get into the third topic. See, please understand, the title reads IMF conditions for Pakistan. The objective of this article is to not to remember what are the conditions IMF has imposed on Pakistan, right? There are certain terms and conditions inside this article which are very important from the prelims perspective, and that is what I want the students to know about, right? But before going there, just get into a small background information about this. We all know that Pakistan is suffering from a severe financial crisis, and there is an IMF bailout that is happening, and in a result of that, one tranche of the bailout has already been released, and for the second tranche of bailout there have been 11 new strict conditions, including tax reforms, privatization, reduction in corruption, asset declaration by government officials, etc. has been imposed as conditions. Now, what I want you to guys know is about these things. See, there might be questions in prelims. The term extended fund facility, the term extended credit facility, resilient sustainable facility, frequently seen in news, is related to World Bank, IMF, Asian Development Bank, New Development Bank. So there might be a question like that, and that is where I want you to understand what these terms are. See, extended fund facility means a longer program. Extended term facility is a funding program by IMF to resolve medium term macroeconomic issues, right? So it's a longer repayment period program. So it is an extended fund facility. It is given by IMF to low income countries, emerging economies, and also so it is given by IMF to middle income countries, emerging economies, advanced economies, and also low income countries which are part of extended credit facility. Extended credit facility is also a funding program by IMF exclusively for low income countries. And IMF has something called as poverty reduction and growth trust program. So all the low income countries which are part of this poverty reduction and growth trust program can avail the extended credit facility. So the difference between extended fund facility and credit facility is that extended credit facility is only available for the low income countries, whereas extended fund facility is given to middle income countries, emerging economies, advanced economies, who are basically having medium term macroeconomic or balance of payment crisis, right. So what are some of the conditions that are imposed by IMF? The conditions is country policy commitments expected to focus on structural reforms and the disbursement or a dispersal of the money. Like I said, Pakistan has got one tranche, and for the second tranche there are some 11 conditions. So fulfillment of the conditions imposed by IMF in terms of structural reforms will result in dispersal of the second tranche. So the money will not be given as a single time, it will be given in multiple times, and every time you have to get a new tranche of money, you have to fulfill certain conditions, right. Typically the duration is for 3 years, in the sense that typically the dispersal will happen for 3 or 4 years depending upon the situation. The extended facility will suggest some policy reforms which the country has to implement over 3 to 4 years of time period, and the repayment rate or the repayment period will be 4.5 to 10 years, right. This will be the repayment time period, and the interest rate will be determined by market determined special drawing rights interest rates. This is about extended fund facility, and we also discussed about extended credit facility. Now there is another fund called as resilience sustainability facility, right. So who are eligible for this resilience sustainability facility? Like I said, all poverty reduction and growth trust low income countries, small states whose population is less than 1.5 million and whose gross national income is less than certain base determined by IMF periodically, and also all middle income countries. So what is this growth resilience and sustainability facility? Basically it is an affordable long term financing option, affordable long term financing option to support reforms that will reduce the macroeconomic issues or climate related and pandemic preparedness related issues. Basically it is to a longer term, whereas extended fund facility is a medium term. This is a longer term to have a financing reforms to reduce the risks in balance of payment, prospective risks, not the risks that are happening. Please understand this. Extended fund facility will be issued when the country is already facing some problems, right, like Pakistan is facing, whereas resilience and sustainability facility is to make changes in your economy in a longer term to avoid any potential or prospective macroeconomic fundamental issues like balance of payment crisis or climate resilience or pandemic preparedness, etc., right. And the another term that is associated with this entire IMF jargon is governance and corruption diagnostic assessment. Governance and corruption diagnostic assessment is a survey taken up or an assessment survey taken up by IMF. It's a country specific survey. It's a country specific survey. It will do an in-depth country specific analysis, identify the vulnerabilities, weaknesses, corruption risks in key state functions, and it will provide a tailored actionable recommendations to rectify those risks. So it is an in-depth survey of a specific country. It's not an overall survey done by IMF on all the countries. It is done by IMF on a specific countries to understand the vulnerabilities, weaknesses, etc., and it will provide actionable suggestions. Now let's continue to the fifth topic of the day, that is about Macaulay minutes, etc. See, basically this topic I am taking up because of the importance that is attached to this topic in the recent times. There is a lot of conversation and discussion and debate happening surrounding these topics because of the Honorable Prime Minister's speech, etc. So let's understand what is this. See, basically the first ever medical college in India to teach complete allopathy and Western medicine is established in Calcutta. It's called as Calcutta Medical College. It's established in the year 1835. Remember this year, it is important, right? In 1835 February, Calcutta Medical College was established, and it is the first ever medical college in the country to teach Western medication or complete allopathy. Why the year 1835 is important? Year 1835 is also the year the famous Macaulay Minutes was released. Now, the story goes that during this, when this college came up, right, before this college there was another college called as Native Medical Institution. Again in Kolkata, right? Native Medical Institution in Kolkata was there before this college. I think Native Medical Institution came up in somewhere around 1822. So what is this Native Medical Institution? It is also a medical college, but it is teaching Western medicine plus Ayurveda, Unani and all the other things in Arabic and other vernacular languages, right? This is important. It is teaching Western medicine, Ayurveda, Unani, etc. in Arabic as well as other languages. Now, now in 1835 we have established Calcutta Medical College, and at this point of time Macaulay was chairman of the Lord Benedict's Education Committee, and a debate was going on between Orientalist and the Anglicist about the medium of instruction, right? And the chancellor or the chairman of this Native Medical Institution has argued that the sciences has to be taught in the language that the natives will understand, right? Please understand it, the sciences have to be taught in the language that the natives will understand, where that is whatever the local language is. And he also argued that since Sanskrit at this point of time is not being learnt by all the people and it is only restricted to Brahmins and the other upper caste, so the more medium of instruction should not be Sanskrit, but it should be Arabic or Persian. That is the argument of the Orientalist. They argued that the sciences should be taught in a language the masses should understand, and that language should be Arabic or Persian because it is the language most people are using. At this point of time, Macaulay has came up with a minute which has soundly rejected all these proposals, and the story is that he has soundly rejected these proposals because of this very argument that the sciences has to be taught in the native language. So he basically told that English should be the medium of instruction, and the people who are being taught English will be English Indian in nationality and English in preference. The famous quote, I am not remembering that, right? So now, what are the some of the important this thing Macaulay Minutes important highlights? The first thing is he said English should be the medium of instruction. All the government funding for education should be given exclusively to support English as medium of instruction. And the third thing is that traditional Indian learning should not be encouraged, and he also proposed something called as downward filtration theory, that English education should be targeted at a small elite class of citizens who will learn English and will pass on to the masses. And next, the goal is to have Indian in blood and color and English in taste and opinions. This is the quote, right? Indian in blood and color and English in taste and opinions, that should be the goal. So these are the main highlights of the Macaulay Minutes. Now, after Macaulay Minutes of 1835, we also had Wood's Dispatch again in 1834. So Wood's Dispatch can be considered as a sort of reversal or a balance of Macaulay Minutes or Anglicist and Orientalist controversy. So in Wood's Dispatch, what they said is that the medium of instruction for primary education should be vernacular languages, secondary education should be English and vernacular languages, and a higher education should be compulsory English language. So it has balanced between the Anglicist and Orientational controversy without going either through complete vernacular languages or completely English. It has given a mix of both. It also given a recommendation that the government should support education for women, and there should be at least one government school opened in every district. Grants should be given to private schools, and a separate education department should be given, should be established. So these are some of the important points of the Wood's dispatch. He encouraged teacher training. He also encouraged establishment of universities in large cities. So we have got universities in Bombay, Calcutta, and Madras based upon this Wood's dispatch only. And at least one government should be opened in every district. Training of teachers should be happening. So these are some of the important points of Wood dispatch. See, the entire topic of education in colonial India is very important for this year prelims. So I suggest all the students who are watching this to have a deeper study of this aspect. Right. Next thing is FDI in insurance sector. The recent cabinet meeting has approved private participation in civil nuclear power sector and also cleared 100% FDI in insurance sectors. Right, this is the context. So the cabinet meeting that has happened recently has approved private participation in civil nuclear power sector. As of now, there is no private participation in terms of plant operations and electricity generation of FDI in civil nuclear sector. Only there is they can only give a plant materials, etc., but there is no plant operation. So private participation in civil nuclear power sector has been allowed, and there is also 100% FDI in insurance sector. Right now it is only 74%. Now it is allowed 100%. See, let's get into a little bit of details here. Civil energy sector in India is considered as a strategic sector, and since it is considered as a strategic sector that is important for the nation like railways and telecommunications, it is historically a state dominated sector with key operator being Nuclear Power Corporation of India Private Limited. Right. So, and the laws governing this sector is Atomic Energy Act and Civil Liability Act of 2010. Right. And this the department coordinating all this is Department of Atomic Energy, directly coming under PMO. So you can understand the importance of this sector. It is directly coming under PMO, considered as a strategic sector, right? And only one PSU is handling it. Now, the earlier position that is there is that private sector is only allowed as suppliers and vendors, not allowed as operators of nuclear plants, right? And the nuclear power tariffs are also regulated by the government itself and not market determined. So it's a very tightly controlled sector. But Prime Minister Modi has announced recently that India is on a fast track reform express, and in line with that statement, this liberalization norm has come. Right. So there is a new bill, Sustainable Harnessing and Advancement of Nuclear Energy in India Bill 2025, right, Shanti Bill. So this bill objective is to add 100 gigawatts of nuclear capacity by 2047. In line of this bill only, we have also announced in the last year budget a 20,000 crore allocation for the investment in small modular reactors. Right. Now, what we are going to do in this Shanti Bill is that we are going to align civil nuclear liability with international norms. So what are these terms and conditions that will come into picture only once we see the details of the bill, right? And the purpose, and it also proposes to establish an independent nuclear safety authority. It should not be government, it will be an independent nuclear safety authority, right? It will have a dedicated nuclear tribunal, because there is a private participation. Any cases the government cannot take a decision. So we need an independent authority for safety, an independent authority for adjudication purposes, right? This bill will allow nuclear power generation by private entities. It will allow fuel fabrication, equipment manufacturing, and certain plant operations by private entities, right? Now, like I said, In line of the Shanti objective of generating 100 gigawatts of nuclear energy by 2047, we are also discussing about this small modular reactors, right? This is less than 300 megawatts. Budget announcement 20,000 crore has been announced for this, right? The objective is to have at least 5 indigenous SMRs by 2033. The importance of small modular reactors is that they are of lower cost, enhanced safety, and suitable for private participation. This is about the nuclear thing. Next thing is insurance. The cabinet has also announced insurance insurance sector liberalization, where 100% FDI in insurance sector is also on cards, right? As of now, only 74% is being allowed, right? So in India, we have life insurance, general insurance, and health insurance, right? Strategic sector for financial inclusion and long-term capital formation. So this is the earlier at 26%, we have increased to 49% and 74% with conditions. Now we are increasing to 100%. However, right, this bill has to be cabinet has approved the bill, and we are tabling this bill in the parliament, but there are certain conditions. The conditions is retaining Indian management control. It has to meet solvency and government norms of the government. Chairman, MD, and CEO has to be an Indian resident. So these three things will ensure that the foreign companies will not establish monopoly on Indian insurance market. So there should be chairman, MD, or CEO needs to be an Indian, and retaining Indian management control has to happen, meet solvency and government norms. And what we have done is that we have relaxed the repartition and dividend norms. So what are the relaxations that happened, we can only see once the bill has been tabled properly. The last topic of the day is MGNREGA, right? So what is happening with MGNREGA is that government is likely to rename the MGNREGA scheme to Pujya Babu Gramin Rojgar Yojana, right? So MGNREGA is basically a rights based scheme that came up in 2005. The word here used is rights based scheme, in the sense that the people can demand unemployment for 100 days in rural areas across the country. So the employment can be demanded as a right, and if the government is unable to fulfill the demand of employment, it has to pay some employment allowance to all the people. So that is why it is called as a rights based scheme. It came in 2005. 2005 we also have certain other rights based regime coming up there. In 2005 we have MGNREGA, in 2004-5 we have Right to Information Act, and in 2009 we had a Right to Education Act. So the rights based regime has started in this era itself, right? So the another proposals that are there in the MGNREGA revamp is that raising the guarantee employment from 100 to 125 days, and renaming the law. So why are we increasing this? See, the reason is that there is an underutilization happening. So despite of the law saying that 100 days of manual labor, there is only 50 days of manual labor is being happening, and rest of the days are not happening. So the MGNREGA at this point of time is severely underutilized. So they want to increase 100 days to 125 days, right? Now, going to the history of this scheme, it was first enacted in 2005, and when it was enacted, it is called as National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, whereas in 2009 the word Mahatma Gandhi was added. It's a rights-based scheme, and it's a statutory act. So, and it's also a legal act. It's not a constitutional act; it's a legal act, right? The authority ministry is Ministry of Rural Development. It covers all rural areas of the country, all rural. It doesn't cover urban areas. And 100 days of unskilled manual rural household work for financial year, right? So what is the funding pattern? The funding pattern is wages by central government, material cost for the scheme by central and state government, and in case of failure to provide employment, the unemployment allocation will be given by the state governments themselves, right. The implementing agency is Gram Panchayat, and the mode of the payment receiving is through DBT. Right, and MGNREGA is not a central sector scheme, it is a central sponsored scheme, point number 1. And the rename, since it is an act of the parliament, the renaming of the act cannot be done by an executive order, hence a bill again has to be placed in the parliament to rename the bill. And the third thing is that employment under MGNREGA is not automatic, it has to be demanded, in the sense that if you are unemployed, you cannot say that I am unemployed, give me unemployment allowance under MGNREGA. You have to first demand the employment, and you will get unemployment allowance only if the state fails to provide you the employment. So, these are some of the key features of MGNREGA. That is all for today's DNA analysis. Thank you.